do. So thank you, Tan Sri. I will go to the next speaker, another very prominent champion of Sabah, in the form of Datuk James Ligunjang. There's not much to say about Datuk James because I think most Sabahans know him very well, of course, and his work. And it's good to know that he's also a very strong proponent of what we love about Sabah and want to, in terms of the people themselves. So only a few things to say about him as we move on. Datuk James is a former legislator and founder of Hormati Perjanjian Malaysia 63 movement, as of course already been spoken slightly just now. Currently, he's engaged as executive secretary of Parti Cinta Sabah, Love Sabah Party. So Datuk James, I give the floor to you. Your talk is on Malaysia Agreement 63 and the historical grievances. So again, ladies and gentlemen, and the audience, this gives us another opportunity, if you like, to see the background of what this discussion is all about today and the Q&A later on, and how we move forward from here. It's very good and important and necessary to have a background of what is happening in Sabah. But the next bit now, of course, is how do we move forward from there? But for now, Dr. James, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Boyd. Good afternoon, and thank you to Borneo Forum for giving me the privilege to share my thoughts on MH63 and how we move forward from here. And before that, let me wish all participants, panelists, a wonderful Kong Hei Fat Choi, and with the hope that we will be blessed with prosperity and happiness. Let me give you a synopsis of what I will be talking about. I will touch briefly on the historical events that lead to the formation of Malaysia and what are the important elements in the Malaysia Agreement and how we should pursue our rights in the Constitution based on the Malaysia Agreement. As Tan Sri Simon mentioned, the idea of the formation of Malaysia was first mooted by Tunku Abdul Rahman during the press luncheon in Singapore in May 1961. This was noted by the British authorities, whose interest is also to decolonize their colonies because of the resolution of the United Nations and because of the financial burden of Great Britain caused by the Second World War. So they are very, very much in a hurry to decolonize. So this was picked up by the British, and this culminated in the discussion at what we call now Malayan, what I call meeting in London from the 20th to the 22nd, where there was where Harad Macmillan, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Tunku Abdul Rahman, and several of his Malayan ministers attended the talks in exploring the possibility of creating the Federation of Malaysia. 2 days of talks was then reported to the British Parliament on the 28th November 1961 by Duncan Sandys, if I can remember very well, in the British Parliament, with whom he reported that after 2 days of talks, there was an expressed intention to form the Federation of Malaysia, together with the Federation of Malaya, Singapore, Sabah, North Borneo, Sarawak, and Brunei. That are the sovereign nations to form a federation. There was never mentioned there was annexation of Sabah and Sarawak to be the 12 and 13 states. There was never the intention expressed that Sabah and Sarawak to become vassal states of the Federation of Malaya. And that's what is the situation we have today. So after the events of 1961, this led to a series of discussion that led to the formation of the Cobble Commission on April 1962 to verify the wishes of the people of Sabah and Sarawak, where they agreed to the formation of Malaysia. As mentioned by Tan Sri Simon, 1/3 only agreed, 1/3 was against, and 1/3 was neutral for Sabah. So there was no majority decision to go in the formation of Malaysia. However, this was reported that the Sabah is favorable in the formation of Malaysia, and this resulted in the formation of the Intergovernmental Committee. This is where it is very important that every one of us to understand what is the function of the Intergovernmental Committee during the time. That was formed on 30th of August 1962, before they signed the Malaysia Agreement on the 29th of July 1963. The function of this Intergovernmental Committee was to study the whole spectrum of the conditions and also responsibilities of the Sabah's participation and Sarawak participation in the Federation. They form 4 principal committees. One is what they call the Constitutional Subcommittee of the Intergovernmental Committee to look into the constitution of the new federation. So because of the limitation of time, because the idea is to launch Malaysia on the 16th of September 1963, there is not much time for them to promulgate a new Malaysian constitution. So it was decided by the Constitutional Subcommittee to adopt the current federal constitution of Malaya and to provisions on the safeguards for Sabah and Sarawak. There was also agreed, it was also agreed that a new Malaysian constitution will be established after we form Malaysia. Unfortunately, until today, it is now 59 over years that we don't have a new Malaysian constitution. And this is one of the principal non-compliance of Malaya towards our federation. Second, there's this legal and judicial subcommittee of the Intergovernmental Committee. This judicial and legal committee is to look into the laws of the country. And it was decided that will have their own court system, will have its body. With that time, the Privy Council will be the appellate court for Sabah, Sarawak, and Malaya. But what happened today? They have removed the Borneo High Court and created the Sabah Sarawak High Court, which is subject to the appellate court of Malaya, the federal court of Malaya, and remove our appeal to the Privy Council. So there you are. There's another non-compliance. And the other one is the most important one, was a fiscal subcommittee. I want everyone to remember that the primary consideration for Sabah to join Malaysia, to join in the formation of Malaysia, was that 40% of all federal income must be returned to Sabah as our catalyst to develop Sabah and empower the wealth of the people of Sabah. Given all these resources. So what happened? Itu 40% pun tidak sampai-sampai. From 1969 until today, there was no financial review. I will talk more about this, our entitlement, later in my explanation. Then we have the Public Service Subcommittee. This is where the issue of Borneoization come about. This is included in the 20 points. That all the positions of this legal the Sabah Civil Service was to be Borneoized for the British and also other foreigners who were holding that positions before. What happened now is that, and also the administration of the state was generally supposed to be restricted to all Sabahans, Sabah affair. But what happened now? A lot of the federal departments headed by about 70-80% headed by non-Sabahans. Bukan saja bawa dia orang punya ketua, dia bawa dia punya clerk pun bawa. There are some even drivers are from Peninsula. This is other state. So Borneoization is no longer there. It's never there. So these are the thing, and then they had this what they call the departmental organization subcommittee. This deals with responsibilities of the federal and the state. That's why they come about this federal list of responsibilities, the state list of responsibilities, and a concurrent list of responsibilities. But unfortunately, most of our lists are taken away by the federal, even from the concurrent list, like tourism is in the concurrent list. So they collect most of this tourism tax, where a lot of issues that needs to be addressed if we want to make Malaysia right. So after this when all this were agreed, then on the 29th of what I call July, then the Malaysia agreement was signed in London, which led to the Malaysia Act on, if I remember very well, on the 31st of July 1963, that permitted, that allowed the government of Britain to transfer the responsibilities to the new Federation of Malaysia. So that's how the Malaysia Agreement came about. So as Tan Sri was mentioned, whether the party signatories to the Malaysia Agreement was sincere in pursuing all that was agreed and written down in the Malaysia Agreement. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, Malaya from the very beginning has been deceiving Sabah and Sarawak to believe that we are equal partners. From the very beginning, we've never been equal partners. It was their very clear intention. There has this neocolonization policy that include Sabah and Sarawak to be the 12th and 13th state. That's why Sabah will never be at the same level with Malaya. But what is important during this time is Sabah and Sarawak must look into their rights in the federal constitution. Sabah is the only state that has this provision of 40% entitlement. The only state that all federal income from Sabah, 40% of it must be returned to Sabah for our development. And ladies and gentlemen, these are in the billions. How much do we receive every year on this entitlement? Only 26.7 million. Do you believe that? And how much is collected by the federal government from Sabah? In billions. Now let us understand what is federal revenue. As stipulated in Article 112C of the Federal Constitution, it states most of the federal revenues you can't itemize, like income tax. That is federal revenue. Custom and excise tax. Just 3 days ago, the Custom and Excise Department of Malaysia reported they collected 40.2 billion of custom tax last year. I would envisage at least 10 billion come from Sabah. And I would, if 40% is to be returned, at least we have 4 billion from custom. That is just an example. 4 billion, tapi kita dapat is peanuts. 26.7 million. This is ridiculous. We also entitled to receive the GST or SST. At least 40% from GST because that become a federal income. Tapi kita dapat kosong. And federal departments in Sabah collect also income. GPJ collect. Kau kena fine is part. 40% of it should be us. Police. Kau kena tangkap, kena fine. Whatever fine you get, 40% for us. Felda, FECRA, all these federal corporations, they earn here. They have plantations here. Whatever income they have, 40% should be ours. And the trading companies from Malaya operating in Sabah or from Sarawak operating in Sabah, we earn that 40%. The petroleum tax imposed by the federal government on Petronas, we are entitled 40%. The dividend of Petronas to the federal government, we are entitled 40%. So, calculate, as far as the 40% is concerned, we should be entitled billions of ringgit every year. But what happened? Article 112C B states that every 5 years, we should have a financial review. You know, in 1969, in 1963, 65, I'm sorry, Sabah received its first entitlement on the 40% valued at 4.9 million. So it continued to reach about 22 million in 1965. 1968. So the first review was conducted in 1969. this is where they will establish that the entitlement for Sabah and Sarawak was 21, I think the big figure was 26.7 million, 20 million. From 1965 to 1968, in 1968, we received 22 million. You see, di sana pun dia orang sudah apa ini tipu kita. 1968, 22 million. Tiba 1969, we got only 20 million. I mean, there's a discrepancy after 1 year. Instead of increasing, our entitlement was decreased to 20 million. So the Constitution says that this amount will remain as it is until the next financial review. So in 1969, it was agreed that there will be an incremental amount at the rate of 7.5% until the next financial review. So from 20 million in 1969 to expectedly to have a financial review in 1975, that figure reached to 26.7 million. In 1975, we're supposed to have the next review to establish how much is Sabah's entitlement as provided, stipulated in the federal constitution.
Dr. James,
Fortunately,
I'm giving you 2 more minutes.
Oh God, give me another 5 minutes. This is very important.
Okay, thank you.
That financial review never happened. And the 26.7 million is frozen in time until today. So this is the problem. This is the main problem for Sabah. This should be the main item that should be pursued by the state government and leaders of Sabah. Because without the 40%, we'll continue to beg to the federal government for funds. With the 40%, you will have billions of ringgit every year, enough to develop our schools, to develop our infrastructures, and create a new industries for the state, to the empowerment of the people of Sabah. Other issues that I need for grievances of Sabah is based on Act 354. This Act 354 is the delegation of the position of the head of state from negara to negeri. This is very important because this is unconstitutional. It's against with the provision of Article 159 and also Article 161 of the Federal Constitution, which expressly said that there should be no attempt to change the position of Sabah and Sarawak in its admission to the Federation of Malaysia. So these changes from negara to negeri is very important. Why? It relates to, I give you one example, the PDA 1974. And this Act 354 was passed in 28th of August 1976. When the PDA Petroleum Development Act was passed, we were still a negara. And when we are still negara, it means we are a sovereign state. And Tun Razak has no authority to vest authority to Petronas, to give rights to Petronas in perpetuity to control our oil resources. This is the legal aspect of it. They have no right at all. The other thing that I need to highlight is Act 750, our territorial integrity. the expansion of our territory. You see, in 1954, there was this order of council by the British Parliament that the territorial boundary of Sabah extend to the continental shelf. But it was amended through Act 750 that restrict Sabah's territorial jurisdiction to 12 nautical miles. What does it signify? It means a lot because most of our oil resources beyond 12 nautical miles. What it means is Petronas, the federal government, can deny us any royalty or cash payment on oil resources. Also that even the 40%, our 40% entitlement on all the Petronas income and oil resources, they can choose not to give to Sabah because of Act 750.
Datuk James, I have to stop you now.
So,
That's okay.
if we move 3 minutes, the way forward.
I have to move on. Otherwise, we have the other speakers
to move
waiting.
forward.
Just to move forward, one sentence, please.
Yeah.
Datuk James, you can
Madam.
take 3 minutes from me. Kau ambil si 3 minutes, kau punya very important. Thank you.
To move forward, one, Sabah and Sarawak must have a close rapport. They must continue to discuss the position within Malaysia. Second, the Sabah and Sarawak should form a parliamentary caucus committee at the parliamentary level to properly scrutinize every bill that is supposed to be tabled in parliament so that we can understand the ramification and the repercussion of every bill. Because most of our parliamentarians, with due respect, they hardly study the bill, so that when they pass bills that affect Sabah and Sarawak, most of them separuh tidur agree. That's what happened to us. Kita punya teritori karena lepas, and all kita punya negara pun lepas. So this is a problem. So I will try to answer if there are questions again, but to move forward, I think the main focus should be Article 112C and 112D of the Federal Constitution that empowers us to have 40% of the federal revenue. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay. Thank you, Datuk. It's very illuminating as always, and we always want to hear what you say, but unfortunately we are starting to run out of time. Thank you, Philip, for giving the 3 minutes to Datuk. Raymond, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Datuk, for that sharing on the events that leads up to the formation of MS63 and also what we should do next, moving forward. So before I introduce the next speaker, I would like to invite everyone for a group photo session. So can I invite everyone to switch on your camera? Say change. We are talking about we hope that the young generation will take up the change to make the change. So there's a question here from Darren from UIT MKK. He's asking, should university students have the right to be involved in any political activities that would cite them to be more aware on the current issues that are happening in our country? So he's saying that the reason I asked is because of the university and the University College Act 1971 restrict university students from participating in politics. Any other speakers?
I think now we are 18-year-old are permitted by law to vote or even participate in politics. So those above 18, if you are even as a student, I believe you can participate in politics. There will be no restriction because the law provides you to be able to vote and also participate in politics. So that answers the question. But just to add on to Professor James Chin on the so-called benefits to Sabah on the relocation of the Indonesian capital to Kalimantan. A lot of people say, oh, Sabah will benefit. But I have my reservation because Sabah, I think there will be a transmigration of Indonesians from Sabah who are in the thousands working in the plantation sectors will move back to reverse migration, move back to Kalimantan because there will be a lot of economic activity once what I call the capital of Indonesia is relocated in Kalimantan. So we must be very worried that we will have a problem with our plantation sectors once the reverse migration happens. And secondly, our oil resources is not a finite resources. In the next 15 years, just like Brunei, our oil resources will be depleted. So if our generation don't ask for the 40% entitlement, then we'll continue to beg. Then to beg from the federal government, it will not change our position. That's why all this hinge to the development of Sabah hinge on the 40%. There's a saying, those who has gold holds the key. It's very true. If you have the gold, it empowers you. So the new generation or our new group of politicians must be fully aware and responsible on the rights of Sabah in the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. James. Okay, I think that's about time for today, and I really thank you for all the questions that have been raised and the sharing of your thoughts on your subject matter. For the closing, I would like to invite now Boyd to give his closing remark for this forum.
Thank you, Raymond.